side, there was an olive grove, and he and his disciples decided to enter. Now Judas, the one who was to hand him over, knew the place, because Jesus had often met there with his disciples. So Judas came to the grove, guiding a detachment of soldiers and some officials from the chief priests and Pharisees. They were carrying torches, lanterns, and weapons. Jesus, knowing all that was going to happen to him, went out and asked them,
"Who is it you want?"
"Jesus of Nazareth."
"I am he."
And Judas the traitor was standing there with them.
When Jesus said, "I am he," they drew back and fell to the ground. Again, he asked them,
"Who is it you want?"
"Jesus of Nazareth."
"I told you that I am he. If it is me you want, then let these men go."
This happened so that the words he had spoken would be fulfilled.
I have not lost one of those you gave me.
Then Simon Peter drew a sword, drew it, and struck the high priest's servant, cutting off his right ear. Jesus commanded Peter,
Put your sword away. Shall I not drink from the cup the Father has given me?
Then the detachment of soldiers, with its commander and the Jewish officials, arrested Jesus.
They bound him and brought him first to Annas, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, the high priest that year. Caiaphas was the one who had advised the Jews that it would be good if one man died for the people.
Simon Peter and another disciple were following Jesus. Because this disciple was known to the high priest, he went with Jesus into the high priest's courtyard, but Peter had to wait outside at the door. The other disciple, who was known to the high priest, came back, spoke to the girl on duty there, and brought Peter in. The girl at the door asked Peter,
"You are not one of his disciples, are you?"
"I am not."
It was cold, and the servants and officials stood around a fire they had made to keep warm. Peter also was standing with them, warming himself.
Meanwhile, the high priest questioned Jesus about how his disciples and his teaching.
I have spoken openly to the world. I have taught in all the synagogues and temples, where all the Jews come together. I said nothing in secret. Why ask me? Ask those who heard me. Surely they know what I said.
When Jesus said this, one of the officials nearby struck him in the face. He demanded,
"Is this the way you answered the high priest?"
If I said something wrong, testify as to what is wrong. But if I spoke the truth, then why did you strike me?
Then Annas sent him, still bound, to Caiaphas the high priest.
As Simon Peter stood warming himself, he was asked,
"You are not one of his disciples, are you?"
"I am not."
One of the high priest's servants, a relative of the man whose ear Peter had cut off, challenged him.
"Didn't I hear him in the olive grove?"
Peter denied it yet a third time.
At that moment, a rooster began to crow. Peter remembered the word that the Lord had spoken to him, and went out and wept bitterly.
Then the Jews led Jesus from Caiaphas to the palace of the Roman governor. By now it was early morning, and to avoid ceremonial uncleanliness, the Jews did not enter the palace. They wanted to be able to eat the Passover.
So Pilate came out to them and asked,
"What charges are you bringing against this man?"
"If he is not a criminal, we would certainly not have handed him over to you."
"Take him yourselves. Judge him by your own law."
"But we have no right to execute anyone."
This happened so that the words Jesus had spoken, indicating the kind of death he was going to die, would be fulfilled.
Pilate then went back inside the palace, summoned Jesus, and asked him,
"Are you the king of the Jews?"
Is that your own idea? Or did others talk to you about me?
"Am I a Jew? It was your own people and your chief priests who handed you over to me. What is it you have done?"
My kingdom is not of this world. If it were, my subjects would fight to prevent my arrest by the Jews. As it is, my kingdom is not here.
"So, then you are a king."
It is you who say I'm a king. The reason I was born, the reason why I came into this world, was to testify to the truth. Anyone on the side of truth listens to me.
What is truth?"
With this, he went out again to the Jews and said,
"I find no basis for a charge against this man. Recall your custom, whereby I released to you someone at Passover time. Do you want me to release to you the King of the Jews?
No, not him! Give us Barabbas!
Now Barabbas had taken part in a rebellion. Then Pilate took Jesus and had him flogged. The soldiers twisted together a crown of thorns and put it on his head. They clothed him in a purple robe and repeatedly came up to him and ridiculed him.
All hail, King of the Jews!
And they struck him in the face. Once more, Pilate came out and said to the Jews,
Look, I'm bringing him out to you to let you know that I find no case against him.
When Jesus came out wearing the crown of thorns and the purple robe, Pilate said to them,
Here is the man.
Crucify him! Crucify him!
Take him and crucify him yourselves. I find no case against him.
We have our law. According to that law, Mr. Barabbas is clean to be the Son of God.
When Pilate heard this, he was even more afraid. And he went back inside the palace. He asked Jesus,
Where do you come from?
but Jesus gave no answer.
Do you refuse to speak to me? Don't you realize I have the power either to free you or to crucify you?
You would have no power over me if it were not given to you from above. Therefore, the one who handed me over to you is guilty of the greater sin.
From then on, Pilate tried to set Jesus free, but the Jews kept shouting,
If you let this man free, you are no friend of Caesar. Anyone who claims to be a king opposes Caesar.
Here is your king.
Take him away! Take him away! Crucify him!
What? Shall I crucify your king?
We have no king but Caesar.
Finally,
Pilate handed Jesus over to them to be crucified.
So the soldiers took charge of Jesus, carried his own cross, even out to the place of the skull, which in Aramaic is called Golgotha.
Remember me in a Bible wrapped in faded by remember me in a sanctuary filled with silent prayer. And as you raised and heart to heart, bound my grace and peace, child of wonders, child of God, I remember
Here they crucified him, and with him 2 others, one on each side and Jesus in the middle. Pilate had a notice prepared and fastened to the cross. It read, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. Many of the Jews read this sign, for the place where Jesus was crucified was near the city. And the sign was written in Aramaic, Latin, and Greek. The chief priests of the Jews protested to Pilate.
Do not write the king of the Jews. Write this man claims to be the king of the Jews.
What I have written, I have written.
Near the cross of Jesus stood his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene. When Jesus saw his mother there, and the disciple whom he loved standing nearby, he said to his mother,
Dear woman, here is your son.
Then he said to the disciple,
Here is your mother.
From that time on, this disciple took her into his home. Later, knowing that all was now completed, and so that the scripture would be fulfilled, Jesus said,
I'm thirsty.
A jar of wine vinegar was there, so they soaked a sponge in it, put the sponge on a stalk of the hyssop plant, and lifted it to Jesus' lips. When he had received the drink, Jesus said,
It is finished.
With
With that, he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. Now it was the day of preparation, and the next day was to be a special Sabbath. Because the Jews did not want the bodies left on the crosses during the Sabbath, they asked Pilate to have the legs broken and the bodies taken down. The soldiers therefore came and broke the legs of the first man who had been crucified with Jesus, and then those of the other.
But when they came to Jesus and found that he was already dead, they did not break his legs. Instead, one of the soldiers pierced Jesus' side with a spear, bringing a sudden flow of blood and water. The man who saw it has given testimony, and his testimony is true. He knows that he tells the truth, and he testifies that you also may believe. These things happened so that the scriptures would be fulfilled. Not one of his bones will be broken. And as another scripture says, they will live on the one they have pierced.
Later, Joseph of Arimathea asked Pilate for the body of Jesus. Now Joseph was a disciple of Jesus, but secretly because he feared the Jews. With Pilate's permission, he came and took the body away. He was accompanied by Nicodemus, the man who earlier had visited Jesus at night. Nicodemus brought a mixture of myrrh and aloes, about 75 pounds.
They took Jesus' body, and in accordance with Jewish burial custom, bound it up in wrappings of cloth, perfumed oils. In the place where he had been crucified, there was a garden, and in the garden, a new tomb, in which no one had ever been buried. Because of the Jewish preparation day, they laid Jesus there, but the tomb